Thanks for coming out and watching the oxymoronic Reddit Professional Show, where I showcase the best and worst of the internet. Here I comment on brilliant and hilarious comment chains regarding dumb shit on the internet for you to enjoy. Make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell button so that you get notifications every time we come up with a new video. Enjoy this week's show.
We are firefighters and net neutrality experts. Verizon was caught throttling the Santa Clara Fire Department's unlimited internet connection during one of California's biggest wildfires. We're here to answer your questions about it, or net neutrality in general, so ask us anything. When you're standing there looking at this wall of fire as far as the eye can see, what's going through your mind? As a lifelong Californian, I want to thank you for doing what you all do. Be safe. It's different than you would think. We usually have so much to do that we don't experience events as we would if we were watching as bystanders. This is why situational awareness tools and a rapid exchange of information are so important for us. Once we arrive and start fighting a fire, we're all in. In response to Verizon throttling the Santa Clara Fire Department, despite Verizon reps telling the department they were subscribing to an unlimited, no-throttle plan, the California professional firefighters have fully endorsed California's SB 822, which is the strongest state-level net neutrality bill. At a time when they are attempting to save lives and property, firefighters cannot afford the added danger, to the safety of the public as well as their own safety, of unnecessary interferences in the technology they rely on to do their jobs and keep civilians safe. As I understand it, the PI FCC basically said it didn't have the authority to regulate ISPs as common carriers, which is what the Wheeler FCC argued gave them the power to enforce net neutrality. By doing this, PI's FCC would also be unable to deny states from enforcing their own net neutrality rules, as they have essentially given up the power to regulate in this way. That isn't stopping PI's FCC from being lobbied to preempt the states, but it's dubious whether they legally could or not. Keep in mind, that's just as I understand it. Read it somewhere here on Reddit on a previous net neutrality-related thread. This is essentially correct. When the FCC repealed the 2015 Open Internet Order, they didn't just kill net neutrality, they also passed an order preempting states from regulating broadband services themselves. But because they abdicated themselves of oversight over broadband internet services entirely through their net neutrality repeal, their preemption order is likely unenforceable legally. In other words, they can't simultaneously block states from regulating broadband and claim they aren't responsible for broadband anymore. I have the feeling that their solution to this will be to instate a rule/policy where phones tied to emergency personnel or organizations will not see throttling, but it will only apply to emergency personnel/organizations and thus, allow them to continue screwing everyday citizens. What are your thoughts on this? Something the folks at Santa Clara have asserted in their effort to raise attention to the issue is it isn't just public safety agencies that need no throttling during an emergency. You also need the public to be able to communicate as well. Striking that balance in times of emergency is in fact a core mission of the FCC, but with the abandonment of its authority over ISPs, it can do nothing to address the problem you articulated. That's why we need the House of Representatives to reverse the FCC with the Congressional Review Act, or as a backup measure, states need to exert their authority to referee these issues. Verizon actually claims it's their policy to remove throttling in emergencies such as these fires. In their statement, Verizon attributed this to employee error, in that the employee didn't properly apply company policy. So, at least on paper, it's already policy at Verizon, and that's probably true for most major telecom firms. Stories like this are not good PR, and are easily avoided from a technical/managerial standpoint. So in my semi-learned opinion, that's where policy will go/be reaffirmed going forward. I do hope you get an answer though. I'd love to see what they think. AT&T actually runs something called FirstNet, which is a government corporation under the authority of the National Telecommunications Information Administration, but first responders still have to pay for the capacity. VZ competes with them by offering private services. Damn, that's so odd and seemingly backwards for rich countries to delegate these services to private companies that are profit-focused, not absolute rock-steady type emergency setups. What is the ironclad definition of net neutrality for you guys? Some context. I work in IT and support net neutrality. In my opinion, a network connection is neutral if all traffic going through it is treated the same. That includes prioritization, latency, loss, bandwidth, cost, etc. Zero rating runs afoul of net neutrality too, e.g. free music streaming on T-Mobile. It's a dumb hose for bits, much like a hose for water. It doesn't matter what kind of water it is, where it came from, where it's going, or what it'll be used for. In my opinion, net neutrality should not involve itself with the prevention of fraud, deceptive advertising, censorship, or any other telecom malfeasance. While these issues are very important, they detract from the main concept of net neutrality. Some of these issues are more controversial than net neutrality and may become poison pill riders on future legislation. Carriers that offer unlimited plans that are not unlimited should be sued for deceptive advertising. Practically speaking, as long as all traffic was throttled indiscriminately, then neutrality was not lost. Carriers that offer unlimited plans that are not unlimited should be sued for deceptive advertising. I completely agree with this. I worked for AT&T for a while and their unlimited data plan wasn't actually unlimited, but we were still supposed to call it that. It actually cut out after 21 or 22 gigabytes and some customers knew, but others were furious, and rightfully so, when their unlimited data started getting throttled. They were never told that it would do that when they signed onto the plan. Do you think there is any hope for legislation that will keep these companies from completely screwing us and the internet in general? There's plenty of hope, and we shouldn't lose sight of it. Since the FCC's wildly unpopular repeal of net neutrality protections, the Senate passed a Congressional Review Act resolution to overturn the repeal in a historic 52-47 bipartisan vote. Now, the CRA is pending in the House, where 177 members have already signed the discharge petition to force a vote on the measure. We need 218 to ensure that the vote on the CRA happens in the House. If we pass the CRA, we could completely overturn the FCC's repeal and restore strong, enforceable net neutrality rules. The California Assembly is moving forward with the strongest state-level net neutrality protections, and several other states are looking at state-level protections. And 23 state attorneys general offices are suing the FCC to challenge the repeal in the courts. Folks can keep up with the latest by visiting battleforthenet.com. Net neutrality itself is actually rather easy to detect. There's many tools online that do that, by testing a direct connection and a routed connection and see if they match in speed. As for internet speed, false advertising and all-round throttling depends on how the law is put in place. Like in my country, it's something like providers need to be able to provide X% of the advertised speeds Y% of the time, so if I get suspicious I can easily write a script that automatically measures and logs the speed and intervals through a time period. There's probably also many tools online that can do that too. I have a Verizon phone plan and can do a speed test on speedtest.net, then compare with a speed test on fast.com, owned by Netflix. Sometimes it's that easy to see what gets throttled. I recommend anyone try it just to get an idea of what things are like. Our team at Fight for the Future worked with the Open Observatory of Network Interference, OONI, to help launch a new mobile app that lets users monitor their traffic for online censorship and changes in network performance. One of the most promising developments has been California's new net neutrality bill SB 822, which recreates the protections from the 2015 Open Internet Order and empowers California's Attorney General to look into net neutrality violations that come up. But what's needed is to restore strong oversight over our critical communications infrastructure, broadband internet. With the FCC's repeal, the agency effectively walked away from any responsibility over the nation's networks. And to fix that, we need Congress to use their Congressional Review Act powers to overturn the agency's repeal ASAP. Can you provide some information on how first responders' communication technology has changed since the advent of the internet? Are basics like radios with dispatchers still used, or is it mostly digital at this point? I work the policy end rather than the stuff on the ground, but public safety technology has changed enormously, particularly after 9/11 showed the limits of analog communications and every public safety service operating on separate frequencies. There is a lot of data transmission and real-time video, and considerable efforts to maintain interoperability among all first responder teams. That said, keep in mind the public safety community is not monolithic. Firefighters, policy, EMTs, and others are generally locally funded. In many places, first responders continue to use legacy equipment because they do not have the money to upgrade. What does Verizon throttling after you used up your data plan have to do with net neutrality? It is worth your time to read the emails between Verizon and the firefighters to understand why it's important there is some sort of legal recourse to address bad behavior by ISPs. The FCC's repeal of the 2015 Open Internet Order effectively legalized behavior such as upselling during a declared emergency, and it's an open question as to why the fire department believed twice they had an unlimited unthrottled plan only to find out during the fire itself they did not. The legally relevant questions there is, what did Verizon represent to the fire department those 2 times for them to have the incorrect understanding of their data plan? But without a means of investigation, we are going to just have to go on what both sides say in the press. What matters here is that the fire department was told by Verizon that they were subscribing to an unlimited, no-throttle plan. Under the 2015 Open Internet Order, the FCC would have the authority to investigate whether Verizon was being sufficiently transparent in their data plans to the fire department and public safety in general. Here is my take and opinion. Net neutrality would not have changed anything. Net neutrality is not about limiting all data on whatever plan you are on, it is about throttling data from competing services. Example, you have Spectrum for your internet and cable TV, but you prefer to watch Netflix, but Spectrum throttles the feed/site of Netflix so that it is very poor quality in the hopes you will use Spectrum's VOD services and pay them instead. That is where net neutrality comes into play. This situation is that VZ being tools and not abiding by contract, if the contract did specify that it was a completely non-throttled plan after so much data usage. Also, what is being ignored is that VZ did not reset after the bill cycle. I am not saying that VZ didn't screw up or that they are not at fault, but this has nothing to do with net neutrality. Yes, the timing is a bit suspect, but how would net neutrality have protected the overage of 25 GB that the account went over? I have VZ, and when I do reach a certain limit my account throttles until the bill cycles, even though I am on an unlimited plan. I accept this as part of the agreement. I fully support the fire departments and even help out with emergency communication from time to time, but they were getting a steal of a deal at under $50 per month for 25 GB. Question: how much data did this vehicle use or need in any given month? Not being in as about it, truly have that question. Was this data plan shared with any other devices or personnel? One more thing. I have had the same VZ plan for 8 years, and my data gets throttled even with an unlimited plan. Net neutrality is not the solution to this issue. Yes, it even expressly mentions this in the article. Obviously I have nothing but respect for these firefighters, and Verizon sucks for not immediately lifting the data cap given the emergency, but painting this as being a result of the NN repeal is just disingenuous. NN is just a hot topic and nobody has any idea what it actually means. I support net neutrality, but this is a little ridiculous. I mentioned this elsewhere, but the repeal of net neutrality included the large abandonment of the legal obligations. This is called reclassification from Title II of the Communications Act to Title I of ISPs that would have made Verizon's conduct in this likely illegal. Think of it this way. The Open Internet Order established the authority of the FCC to oversee issues involving competition, privacy, and consumer protection in regards to ISPs. The net neutrality bright line rules in that order are derived from its consumer protection authority from above. The FCC's Restoring Internet Freedom Order did not just repeal the bright line rules, it abandoned its authority to oversee competition, privacy, and consumer protection. That is why it's part of the repeal. And there is a reason for the ISPs lobbying for that result. If the underlying authority remained, ISPs would still be subject to general non-discrimination obligations even without net neutrality regulations. They wanted none of that to remain.
If you enjoyed this week's effective way to waste time, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. If you are enjoying the series, leave me a comment below. A special shout out to the content creators. You frickin' rock.